Welcome to Peaceful Soul, a space where science and real-life stories come together to help you find inner calm and lasting well-being. Have you ever felt the silence of an empty room slowly weighing on you after just a few hours? Now imagine that same silence stretching on for days, weeks, or even months. At first, a little time alone can feel relaxing, even refreshing. But when isolation is no longer a choice, the very systems that keep your body and mind balanced begin to change in ways few people expect. Stress hormones surge, natural sleep rhythms break down, and the mind can start to deceive itself, blurring the line between reality and imagination. In this video, we'll explore the profound effects of social isolation, from hidden changes deep within the brain to the physical symptoms that show up in the body. You'll also hear real-life stories, like that of James, a young veteran who believed he was strong enough to endure a month of complete isolation, only to slowly lose his memory, emotions, and even his sense of time. Cutting-edge research will reveal why social connection isn't just important for emotional health, but is also a key factor in physical well-being and even longevity. If you've ever wondered why humans need each other to survive, or simply want to learn how to protect your mental health during unexpected periods of loneliness, stay with Peaceful Soul to discover the answers. When people hear the word isolation, many think of it as just a passing feeling of sadness or boredom. But in reality, the human body responds to isolation almost as if it were facing a life-threatening danger. From the very first days, stress hormones like cortisol can surge, causing a racing heartbeat, elevated blood pressure, and disrupted sleep cycles. These changes don't just leave you feeling tired. Over time, they increase the risk of immune system suppression, metabolic disorders, and even cardiovascular disease. And the impact goes far beyond the body. It reaches deep into the brain. Neuroscience research shows that the limbic system, the region that governs emotion and fear, becomes hypersensitive, making people more prone to anxiety and chronic stress. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning and self-control, gradually loses efficiency. This imbalance shifts thinking away from logic and toward raw emotion, reducing focus and making sound decision-making far more difficult. The absence of social interaction also removes a crucial safeguard known as reality testing. With no one to talk to or share experiences with, negative thoughts can spiral unchecked, leading to depression, obsessive thinking, and in some cases, paranoia or even hallucinations. That's why people who endure long periods of isolation often report losing their sense of time, suffering from insomnia, headaches, dizziness, and unintended weight loss triggered by digestive problems. Some attempt to cope by creating healthy routines, exercising in small spaces, reading, or keeping a journal to keep the mind engaged. While these strategies are valuable, they can only soften the blow. They cannot replace the deep social connections our bodies and minds are wired to need for survival. In the next part of this story, we'll examine one of the most extreme and devastating examples of prolonged isolation: solitary confinement. A practice used in prisons around the world. It is here that the psychological and biological effects of isolation reveal themselves with an intensity that underscores just how fragile the human brain and spirit can be. When we think of solitary confinement, many picture it as just a disciplinary measure in prisons. But the reality is far harsher. Inside solitary cells, inmates are confined to extremely small spaces, typically about 8 by 10 feet, with little or no access to natural light. They are forced to live alone for 22 to 24 hours a day, with minimal or virtually no human contact. There are no casual conversations, no meaningful activities, and in some cases, no exposure to sunlight. What's striking is that solitary confinement was originally intended as a path to rehabilitation. In the late 18th century, some religious groups in the United States believed isolation would encourage prisoners to reflect on their wrongdoings and rediscover morality. But the psychological damage quickly became evident. The writer Charles Dickens once described solitary confinement as worse than any physical torture. Despite criticism, the practice never disappeared. In fact, it resurged during the 1980s, when the U.S. adopted tough-on-crime policies that caused prison populations to skyrocket. To manage overcrowding and violence, authorities increasingly relied on solitary confinement as a tool of control. In many cases, inmates were sent into isolation for minor infractions, such as speaking out of turn or protesting unfair treatment by guards. Modern research shows that solitary confinement harms everyone, but it is especially devastating for those with pre-existing mental health conditions. Extended isolation worsens symptoms of depression, anxiety, and paranoia, making reintegration into society much harder after release. Statistics reveal that inmates who have been held in solitary are up to 3 times more likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, compared to other prisoners. And they often suffer from memory loss, poor concentration, and social withdrawal. Some U.S. states have passed laws restricting the use of solitary confinement, particularly for juveniles, pregnant women, and individuals with severe mental illness. However, enforcement remains weak, and many facilities exploit loopholes to continue the practice. Meanwhile, international human rights organizations, including the United Nations, have repeatedly condemned solitary confinement as a form of psychological torture, fundamentally incompatible with the goals of rehabilitation and human dignity. In the next part, we'll explore how other countries approach prisoner rehabilitation, through more humane models that treat individuals not merely as subjects of punishment, but as human beings capable of change. Looking around the world, we can see strikingly different approaches to incarceration and rehabilitation. One of the most remarkable examples is Norway, where the prison population is far lower than in the United States. Yet the country spends significantly more per inmate. Instead of focusing on punishment, Norway's prison system is designed around restoring dignity and preparing inmates for reintegration into society. Facilities there are not cold concrete boxes but resemble small, self-contained communities, with bright living quarters, vocational training centers, classrooms, sports areas, and paid work programs. Prisoners are encouraged to maintain as normal a daily rhythm as possible. They learn skills, take classes, and participate in community activities while being treated as human beings preparing to rejoin society, not merely as offenders to be punished. Thanks to this humane philosophy, Norway boasts one of the lowest recidivism rates in the world, around 20% compared to over 60% in the US. This demonstrates a powerful truth. When people are treated fairly and given real opportunities to change, they are far more likely to rebuild their lives than if they are locked away in silence. Such comparisons raise a critical question. Does solitary confinement truly deliver order and safety, or does it simply create deep psychological wounds? Scientific research increasingly shows that long-term isolation damages not only the mind but also the body, disrupting the immune system, cardiovascular health, and cognitive function. This helps explain why individuals who have endured solitary confinement often struggle to return to normal life, carrying lingering fear and distrust even in everyday situations. But the effects of isolation are not confined to prisons. In daily life, extended periods of loneliness, such as working remotely for long stretches, living far from family, or being quarantined during a pandemic, can trigger similar biological responses, differing only in intensity. This is a powerful reminder that social connection is not merely an emotional need, it is a foundation of physical and mental health. In the next section, we'll explore science-backed strategies to reduce the harm of isolation, from simple daily habits to activities that keep the brain flexible and balanced, even when you have to spend long periods alone. So what can we do to protect ourselves during periods of isolation? Whether voluntary or forced, science shows that establishing a regular daily rhythm is critical for maintaining both mental and physical health. The first step is to stay physically active. Neuroscience research has found that just 20 to 30 minutes of daily exercise, even simple movements in a small space, can lower stress hormones like cortisol and stimulate the brain to release endorphins, the natural chemicals that promote happiness and reduce pain. At the same time, it's important to nourish the mind. Reading, journaling, learning a new skill, or engaging in creative activities like painting or playing music keeps the brain flexible and prevents negative thoughts from looping unchecked. These activities act like a release valve, allowing emotions to flow rather than stay bottled up. Maintaining social connections, even virtually, also has a powerful impact. A brief call with a friend or family member helps the brain perform reality checks, reminding us that we are still cared for and connected. Even small gestures, such as sending a message or participating in an online group, can significantly reduce feelings of separation. Sleep and nutrition are equally essential. Poor sleep or irregular eating patterns elevate stress hormones and worsen anxiety or depression. Aim for consistent sleep schedules. Prioritize foods rich in protein, fiber, and vitamins, and limit caffeine and alcohol to keep your body's natural rhythms in balance. Relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or yoga have been shown to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, slowing the heart rate, lowering blood pressure, and inducing calm. Just a few minutes of focused breathing each day can trigger the body's natural recovery mechanisms. While these strategies can't fully replace human presence, they provide an important shield against the harms of isolation, especially in situations we can't immediately change. It's also vital to recognize that isolation doesn't only happen in extreme circumstances. In everyday life, you can feel lonely even in a crowd, like a new employee in a big city or a student living far from family. A Harvard study found that subjective loneliness, the feeling of being disconnected despite being around others, can harm heart health as much as long-term smoking. This highlights that it's not the number of relationships but the quality of connections that truly matters. Building meaningful bonds often requires courage and initiative. Starting a conversation with a coworker, joining a small club, or simply reaching out to an old friend can open new doors. Psychologists recommend setting small, social goals each week, such as calling a relative or joining a community activity, to gradually break through the invisible walls of isolation. Equally important is emotional self-awareness. Keeping a daily journal helps you understand your own feelings, release stress, and share more easily with others when needed. A study from the University of Texas showed that daily emotional writing can improve immune function and reduce stress-related illness. And never hesitate to seek professional support. Therapy, including online counseling, has proven to be as effective as in-person sessions and is more accessible than ever, especially in the United States. Finally, don't underestimate the power of nature. A walk in the park, listening to birdsong, or simply caring for a small houseplant can activate brain regions linked to calm. Scientists call this the green effect, a natural yet remarkably potent way to restore mental balance. Every small action counts. A smile, a kind word, or simply reminding yourself that you are worthy of love can be the first step toward breaking free from the grip of isolation. These real-life stories are not only a testament to human resilience, but also a powerful reminder of the importance of social connection and compassion. One former inmate, who spent over 8 years in solitary confinement, shared that the only thing keeping him sane was the memory of his family and the rare letters he received from the outside world. He said that each letter felt like a fragile lifeline pulling him back to reality, reminding him that he still existed in someone's heart. Even a few handwritten lines were enough to keep hope alive and push back the emptiness that threatened to swallow each passing day. Another man, who lived through months of strict lockdown, survived by keeping a gratitude journal. Every morning, he wrote down at least 3 things he was thankful for: a simple meal, the sunlight streaming through his window, or simply the gift of breathing in peace. Over time, this practice stabilized his mind and eased fear and depression. Psychologists confirm that daily gratitude can boost serotonin, the happiness hormone, helping the brain resist chronic stress. In today's digital age, online support communities have also become a lifeline for many. With just a smartphone, you can find groups of people who share similar experiences, offering empathy and practical advice. While virtual interactions cannot fully replace face-to-face connection, even encouragement through a screen can be profoundly comforting when someone feels completely alone. These stories remind us that hope always exists, even in the harshest circumstances. What matters most is finding a personal anchor, no matter how small, to hold onto. It could be a cherished memory, a loved one, a hobby, or simply the belief that the pain will not last forever. And as we recognize this truth, we also learn to open our hearts to others. Sometimes, a simple check-in or a kind gesture from a friend, neighbor, or coworker can save someone who is silently drowning in darkness. Looking back on this journey, there are key lessons we can all take to protect ourselves and support those around us. Keycap 1: Connection is a survival instinct. Science shows that maintaining relationships, even brief conversations, reduces the risk of depression, anxiety, and even premature death. Even when you feel like withdrawing, try to maintain at least one form of contact, whether it's a text or a phone call. Keycap 2. Create daily anchors. Small, repeatable routines, brewing morning tea, journaling a few thoughts, or taking a short walk, help the brain track time and space, restoring a sense of control and stability. Keycap 3. Care for the body to protect the mind. Balanced meals, adequate sleep, and regular movement regulate stress hormones and strengthen mental resilience. Keycap 4. Practice compassion for yourself and others. A simple check-in, a thoughtful gift, or a listening ear can make a profound difference. Research shows that helping others releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which increases happiness for both the giver and the receiver. Keycap 5. Build a more compassionate society. Instead of relying on harsh punishments like solitary confinement, nations and communities can invest in psychological support, education, and reintegration programs. Successful models in Northern Europe prove that when people are treated with dignity and opportunity, they can recover and contribute positively to society. This is the final message Peaceful Soul hopes to share. Each of us can become a vital link in a network of connection, bringing hope and light to those enduring isolation. Don't wait for grand gestures. Sometimes, a small act of kindness is enough to remind someone that they are not alone on this journey. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to Peaceful Soul to help spread love and connection to even more people. Remember, we are always stronger together, and no one deserves to live in the shadows of isolation.